Okay, great. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning, Friday, January 22nd. It's 11 a.m. and we are happy to do this Rutgers I-Corps Site Program info session. Normally we would be doing this in person, but of course, due to the pandemic, we're virtual. We are driving innovation through customer discovery. I'm Mark de Guzman. I'm the program manager of the Rutgers I-Corps Site Program, and I'm part of the leadership team, and I'll give it to Lori.
So hi, everybody. I'm Lori Dars. I'm the director of the Rutgers I-Corps Site, and really great that you're with us today. We also have the PI on our I-Corps Site grant, Dunbar Burney. You want to say hello, Dunbar?
Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm Dunbar Burney. I'm a professor in material science and engineering. I specialize in solar, but I love patents. I'm the PI on the grant, so it brings the I-Corps training and really believes that Rutgers innovators should succeed. We'll try and help you out.
And we have Dan with us. Dan Benderly is with our Innovation Ventures group. Dan, you want to say a quick hello?
Sure. Hi, I'm with, as Lori said, I'm with Innovation Ventures, which is the group within Rutgers that's responsible for protecting and leveraging intellectual property, including licensing and startups. I have 25 years in a non-academic setting in industry, starting and growing various technology-based companies. You'll hear more about me when you go into the cohort.
And then we don't, I-Corps is famous. We all are on a first name basis. I have to also introduce new Dr. Pascal, member of our teaching team. You want to say hello, Connie?
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Connie Pascal. And again, I am a newly minted PhD in communication, information, and media. So I do a lot of work around messaging, value propositions, also how technology can solve problems, as well as I'm kind of the value proposition queen, or police, perhaps would be a better word for it. And I love innovation and entrepreneurs. I was a longtime entrepreneur before I came back into academia, and I-Corps is one of my favorite things to do. So I look forward to working with people.
Great. And as I mentioned, I'm Lori Dars, and my background is in communication and business development. I have an MBA from Rutgers. I worked in the tech transfer office for many years with faculty and their ventures, their startup companies. I've been really involved with creating the ecosystem at Rutgers for entrepreneurship, and also with student innovators. And I've run a number of large events and pitch competitions. And the one thing that ties us all together is we're all passionate about innovation and entrepreneurship and helping you all. And I thought it was really important that you hear about our diverse backgrounds, because if you do I-Corps, you get to work with all of us, and you get the benefit from the diversity of this team. So next slide, Mark. So before we get into really details of the program, I just wanted to share with you some quotes from some of our participants. So recently we met with one of our previous teams, and they shared this, and I thought it was really, really key. It was the academic lead, and she said that the program opened her eyes to many things that she hadn't thought of. In 7 years she's been working on the innovation, and that's really critical, is that you learn new ways of looking at your innovation. Next one. Our students and also our mentors and everyone becomes more confident with themselves and doing the work over the 6 weeks they're in the program. And I'm not going to read all these, that you can read them, but really just basically cross-disciplinary interactions and really learning how much that they didn't know. So our participants really have a lot of great things to say about the program, and you'll learn some of the details going forward. But I wanted to share this with you even before we get into the agenda. Next slide. So we're basically going to go over the Rutgers I-Corps Site Program, what it involves, what are the requirements to participate, what are the benefits of participating. We want to give plenty of time for you all to answer questions, and then we'll just do a quick wrap up. But feel free to put questions that you have in the chat. We certainly can stop as throughout the program to answer questions. This is really informal. This is for you. We want you to come out of here learning everything that you need to know about I-Corps, and hopefully encourage a lot of you to apply to the program. Okay, next slide. So I-Corps was created by the National Science Foundation in 2011, really to get innovations out of the lab, get basic research to society to benefit customers and really help solve problems. It has become the standard for really commercializing academic research, and it's legislated, and you can see the act there, the American Innovation and Competitiveness Act. But what's more important is I-Corps' success in really developing teams of innovators, training people on how to really commercialize innovations. These are typically researchers that didn't have the business background or the entrepreneurship background, and they learned. And over 600 companies were formed. There's been significant amount of funding, both from the Small Business Association, which is non-dilutive funding, and venture funding. So basically, I-Corps was a success at the national level. Next slide. But basically, they wanted to know, the National Science Foundation wanted to scale this program. And basically, they scaled it by creating this National Innovation Network. So when I-Corps started, there was about 9 nodes across the country, and those are the stars. And it was expanded now to 99 sites. And you could see those as the yellow circles. And we all work together as a network. We have meetings. There's connections you'll make if you join the I-Corps program with all these different innovators, entrepreneurs across the country. Rutgers is one of only 2 sites in New Jersey, the others at NJIT, and we work very closely right now with the New York Innovation Node, which you can see is circled. Next slide. So to participate originally in the National I-Corps program, you had to have previous funding from the National Science Foundation. Now, since Rutgers is a site program, that requirement isn't there. You can join our site program without having any previous funding at all. You can have an idea, a patented innovation, or somewhere in between. You do not have to have previous funding. Our program is very much aligned with the national program, and our goals are also very similar in that we want to help innovators increase the impact of their innovations. We're building this ecosystem, and we want you to gain insights. It's also by going through our program, you learn a lot of skills and strategies. You'll learn if your innovation really is solving a problem, and you learn it very fast. As I mentioned, our program is 6 weeks. So by learning that, you're really decreasing the commercialization risk. And then lastly, our program really introduces you to people from across the university, through the region. Again, we have access to that nationwide network. So it really will increase the opportunities for you to meet other people that can really benefit your innovation and also your career. And we love to say that really what the program does is it bridges that gap between the lab and marketplace. But it's not just for faculty teams, as you'll learn going forward. Our program is a cohort-based program, so it is over a certain time period. And you'll learn really about getting customer feedback before you build and launch a product. And that's really critical. We want you to do this before because we want to save you time and money. We want to make sure that you're creating or building something that does have value to whoever you're building it for, whether it be a consumer-facing business or it's a business-to-business product, whatever it is, we want to make sure that you're actually really providing value. And what does the Rutgers I-Corps site provide? So we provide training. You'll learn more from Mark about I will call them in-person sessions, the on Zoom sessions. They used to be in person, but it's, we run sessions where we're actually getting in front of you and doing some training. There's also a reimbursement for customer discovery. It used to be for travel, and now it's for other things, which Mark will get into. We do provide a software called Innovation Within that focuses on that business model canvas, that 9 boxes you see there in the image. And that's embedded in the software, and you'll learn about that going forward. And then we also, in addition to connecting you with network opportunities, it's also funding opportunities. Our last week is really focused on connecting you to other resources. And this is something we do throughout. So there's a lot of additional opportunities in the ecosystem, not only at Rutgers, through the NSF, through the region. There's just so many things out there for innovators and entrepreneurs, and we help connect you to a lot of them. Next slide.
Okay.
Mark?
So I'll take it from here, Lori. Thanks. And so, you know, the I-Corps program was based out of a entrepreneurship class run by Steve Blank at Stanford University many years ago. And his focus is really about finding, you know, evidence-based entrepreneurship, finding out what the problems are in the real world, rather than a lot of the scientists used to think like, oh, this is a really cool technology, I'm going to build this, but they weren't thinking about the customer in mind. They were just thinking about the technology, more of like technology push rather than market pull. So this way, Steve Blank and now us, I-Corps, we're trying to really focus on developing a solution for the market rather than just what I think. It's really about getting out of the building to find out what the real problems are in the world. So Steve Blank is here and he says, get out of the building. And, you know, with the pandemic, we can't really get out of the building the way we really want to, but the idea is getting out and meeting with potential customers. You know, you're really leveraging the scientific method by having these hypotheses on who you think the technology is good for and why, like what value does the technology bring? Does it make things faster? Does it make things cheaper? You know, are those which are the things that your customers really care about? And asking them, do you really want things to be cheaper? And they might say, like, we actually don't care about the price. We want things to be faster. It just takes 5 weeks and we want it to be done in 2 days. So as you do these interviews with people, you find out more about what they're looking for rather than what you think they're looking for. And that's the evidence. And that way you get the feedback before building, because there are a lot of there's a lot of companies that fail because they don't have enough customers. And so this helps you develop relationships with customers by doing these customer discovery interviews. And so this is a team-based program. And so I was a entrepreneurial lead for a national I-Corps team. And so this is the team that is usually required for the national I-Corps, but we recommend all 3 members. Like you really get a good experience when you have all 3 of these members, though our requirements, you have to have at least 2 of these. And so the number one, the most important team member is the entrepreneurial lead. That's typically a student, graduate student, postdoc, or staff person who has a good understanding of the technology and has probably been working on it for, you know, for a while or even years. They really are focusing on the business opportunity of the technology to find out who the customers are and reaching out to them. And so, yeah, it's usually a student who with that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. The second member, which is critical, of course, also is the technical lead, also called the academic lead, who's the professor or the inventor of the technology. Someone who really understands the inner workings of the technology and understands what it could do. So that way they can, if they need to pivot, the technical lead can really say, yes, the technology could be used for that, or no, that's impossible for this technology. As the inventor, they typically have a better understanding of what the technology can do. And so together they can really drive the innovation forward with their customer discovery interviews. But the third person who is really, really helpful, and though not required, and typically we have the hardest time for teams to get this, is the industry mentor. That's someone from outside the university who has ties to industry, has been out in the working world as a professional, and really can make connections for the team to do these customer discovery interviews. Because a lot of teams might have, let's say, no ties to industry, but this industry mentor is really helpful in connecting the team and getting the interviews really quickly. Warm introductions versus cold calls, right? It makes all the difference in the world. So if you don't have the industry mentor, we do have a mentor request form that we can help you find a mentor for yourself, or we can help you find a mentor as well. So if you have a team without a mentor, make sure you ask us about the industry mentor request form. And so as a requirement for the team, you need at least 2. And so the I-Corps program is really an experiential learning opportunity. We use a flipped classroom approach where we have these videos that you should watch to learn the business concepts. And a lot of our participants are deeply rooted in STEM. So they're really understanding these very kind of difficult scientific concepts, which are really tough to learn. But these business concepts are not really that hard to learn. It's just a lot of the scientists haven't been exposed to them. So because of that, they're actually easy to understand. And that's why they're put on a video, because you don't really have to, draw out all these equations and things like that. But that gives us time to focus more on your weekly presentations and what you learned during class. So each session we have a presentation. The teams do a weekly presentation about what they learned in their interviews. And because it's a cohort, we typically have about 10 teams per cohort. Teams learn from each other. So when one team is presenting, other teams can learn from their mistakes. As the teaching team gives feedback to those teams, they realize, oh, I should look into that too, or I never even thought of that. Or you can even make recommendations to other teams too. And that's why everybody learns from each other. That's what the peer learning is all about. And really it's professional development and skills building, right? Communication skills, networking, and things like that. It's really an experience. And so going through I-Corps really helps you build your confidence, build your skills, build your network, all these different things. It's really, it's more than just a class. And so one of the main foundational parts of the program is this business model canvas, where in the National I-Corps program, they focus on all 9 parts of the business model canvas, which is basically a framework that every business could be boiled down to these 9 components. But in our I-Corps Site program here at Rutgers, we only focus on 2, which is the customer segments on the right and the value propositions in the middle. The reason we focus on those is a lot of teams have difficulty getting that right. And so there's no reason to proceed to the rest of the canvas unless you have those 2 right. When those 2 match up, you have product market fit. And that's what we really want to focus all of our efforts in our site program to then launch you to the national if you're ready. And so each week we have a different theme, and most of our sessions are run on Friday mornings. We have some Tuesdays, but for the most part, it's Fridays, and that's when we have the weekly presentations due on the Friday mornings. And so we have customer discovery and value propositions, customers, users, payers. And then we have office hours in weeks 4 and 5. So we don't have a formal Friday session with presentations, but it's really giving you more time to do these customer discovery interviews. Because by week 3, you should be kind of in the habit or getting good at doing customer discovery interviews. That way, week 4 and 5, you can really kind of let your wings fly and really, spend more of your time not just doing interviews, but reviewing the interviews that you've done. Really, like weeks 1 and 2 are probably the hardest, because that's when you're really learning these concepts and, like, let's say failing, right? You're trying and you're like, it's awkward. It's kind of like stumbling blocks, but you learn through that process. But by week 3, you should have at least 10 to 15 interviews, and you should be really good at it by then. Not great, but you're getting better. And then in the final session, we introduce teams to the larger innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem. We have outside speakers come and talk about the resources and opportunities available. And it's really good networking that you just probably wouldn't get if you're just working in your research lab, right? So we try to make this a holistic program for you. As Zori said earlier about the reimbursable expenses, each team is eligible for up to $2,500 of approved reimbursable expenses. Now, before the pandemic, which you see in red, it was primarily for travel, like airfare, hotel, Uber, Lyft, New Jersey Transit, whatever transportation, to get in front of customers to meet with them face to face. The reason for that is Steve Blank famously says, you want to see their pupils dilate. You want to see the potential customers, the challenges that they're facing. And when you start later on talking about what you're working on, if their eyes light up, then you really know that you've got something good. But that was before the pandemic. Now, post-COVID, the focus is on virtual conferences and trade shows, memberships to professional organizations. So a lot of these are run online. So sometimes they have membership fees required, but that is a very legitimate expense to be reimbursed. Sometimes digital communication tools like Zoom. So typically at Rutgers, we have Zoom technologies and WebEx and things like that. But for some teams who are not part of Rutgers, it's eligible as well. And the LinkedIn Premium is one of the really great tools to use to expand your network and to reach out to people. And so all those are eligible for reimbursements, but Rutgers travel policy doesn't allow for travel reimbursement. So that's why we're not doing travel anymore. Some things that are not allowed, you see at the bottom, like computers and supplies and things like that. But yeah. So Lori, you want to go ahead from here?
Yeah, I also want to mention real quick, I want to circle back real quick to the office hours. So the reason for the office hours is really to give you that one-on-one time.
Yeah.
So each week, we said it's a cohort and it's the 10 teams and we give you feedback, but we found our teams need a little bit more time one-on-one. So that's why we have those 15-minute office hour sessions. So it's our most of our entire teaching team with just your team giving you feedback. And it's anything you need help with. So it's really kind of like extra help. So I just wanted to mention that. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, yeah.
So again, I want to just, you heard some of the quotes in the beginning about, why people, or what they found the value in I-Corps, but I just wanted to give you a few other things, really. It's, learning about the impact your innovation can have in the market. And sometimes teams will pivot. And what that means is not always necessarily do they change their innovation. Sometimes they realize they have another customer segment, and they've learned that their innovation solves a really significant problem for a customer segment they never even thought of. So it really can increase the impact your technology can have. Not only do students learn from I-Corps, but faculty. They learn, as Mark was talking about, the simple business concepts, but they also get more comfortable, talking when they're doing their interviews, right? So sometimes it's faculty doing the interviews. It's typically the student, the entrepreneurial lead, but they both learn, and it's really taking them out of their comfort zone. A lot of it, particularly with the STEM faculty who have just been working in labs, it's a whole new program for them. We talked about learning and meeting or finding out about other opportunities for funding. A lot of our teams have gone on to get significant funding. They've won business plan competitions. It's just learning about opportunities they didn't know about and applying for them. And we found that sometimes our teams apply 1 or 2 funding opportunities, they don't get them, and on the 3rd try they do. So it's really learning about how to apply for different funding opportunities and learning about these opportunities. You find out, why your customers care. If you go through I-Corps, you'll learn about the 3 whys and how to really ask really significant questions. But that's really the foundation of your product or service or whatever you're making is, what makes your innovation important to your customer, and you will learn that through I-Corps. Just moving you along the continuum of commercialization. As I said earlier, our teams are really at different places, and you're not competing against the other teams in the cohort. It's really about seeing you grow from week 1 to week 6. And every single team that goes through I-Corps will grow and will really go further along that commercialization path. That's why it doesn't really matter where you're starting, if you're starting with more of an idea or a really a foundational innovation that maybe has multiple patents, because it's about your growth, and it's about you learning how to commercialize that innovation. I talked about pivoting or failing fast. You're learning this all within a 6-week program. It goes super fast. We emulate a startup because startups move very fast. They're very lean, they're agile, they're able to move quickly. And you'll learn if you need to modify or change very, very fast through our program. Again, it's really about you talking to those customers and them telling you about your innovation. And we again mentioned that you'll meet a lot of people from across the university, from outside the university. We have a really family-oriented program. Members of the cohort really want to help each other learn and grow. So it's really a great way to make new collaborations. Next slide. And these again are just some of the values from the program. I think Mark alluded to them, that the teams get new thinking, new skills, you meet new people, you get new opportunities. We do surveys every cohort, and these are just some of the feedback we've received from our previous teams, that the value they found in the program.
And I would just add, like Lori mentioned, all of these teams come from different time periods in terms of the commercialization journey. So different people get different things from the program, and so sometimes you focus on one thing, but you actually get these other things. But if you put the more you put in, the more you get out of the program. And so we really encourage people who do join the program to engage as best you can with the program.
Yeah, and I think the thing that surprised us was the confidence, that how many of our students said they gained confidence from the program by doing the customer discovery interviews. And we keep hearing that again and again and again. So it's really nice to hear that's a benefit of joining I-Corps. So our applications are open now. We just extended the deadline to January 29th. On our website, I-Corps at Rutgers.edu, you'll find the application. If you click on apply here, You can download a PDF version of the application so you can see the questions. We do encourage you to apply. It's the best way for us to learn about your team. We interview all teams. The worst thing that can happen is we say, you know, maybe I-Corps isn't right for you, or it isn't right for you now, and maybe you should defer to a future cohort. There's no penalty in applying. We run the cohorts every spring, summer, and fall semesters. So we encourage our teams to apply as soon as possible because there are limited spaces and it's a rolling application. So if we're full, we're full. But we like to interview all the teams. So that's why if you can get your application in early, it's really helpful. Faculty, staff, students, alumni, and some invited schools can apply. And Mark's going to get into that about the invited schools. And we also have a fellowship program, which he's going to talk about too. But our email is there, my email, Mark's email. We're going to stay, after we finish the formal part of this presentation for questions. But if later on today you think of a question or next week, just please feel free to email us. We're on email all the time, and we're very open to answering any of your questions.
Okay, and one other thing, there was a question in the chat about the schedule. So I have the schedule here. You see bolded in yellow, those are just 15-minute office hours. So even though the window is from 12 to 3 p.m. on that Tuesday, it's really just a 15-minute office hour for your team. But typically the Friday sessions are 3 hours, and we have a Tuesday session, which is 2 hours. And then the Thursday, Friday for the last 2 days of the session, the last 2 sessions are 3 hours each. Yeah.
And I want to add real quick that we have had cases where a student has a class at 12 noon. So most of the student presentations are in the mornings. And sometimes teams have co-entrepreneurial leads. So one entrepreneurial lead can make, half the sessions, and the other entrepreneurial lead can make the other half of the sessions. We will work with you. We're very flexible. We want you to, get as most out of the program as possible. So if there's one day there that you can't make, don't let that prevent you from applying.
Right. And so I'm going to go into new opportunities for diversity and inclusion that we are offering through the Rutgers I-Corps Site Program. Basically, we have created this I-Corps fellowship program to enable or encourage underrepresented groups, including women, African-American and Hispanic, and Alaska Natives, and people with disabilities to join as individuals to participate in an I-Corps cohort with an accepted I-Corps team. Basically, we offer a stipend to participate for this educational experience to learn about innovation and entrepreneurship and commercialization processes at Rutgers University. This aligns with NSF's goal of broadening participation for these underrepresented groups to get more Americans involved in terms of developing innovative ideas and creating new companies and technologies that will help benefit the American economy and economic development. So there's 2 types of fellowships that we have to offer. One is a team member, and that's the primary one, where we would match you with a team, and you'd play like a supporting role with the entrepreneurial lead. You work most closely with the entrepreneurial lead, and you're like willing to learn, you're coachable. But basically you help in any way you can that's, and meaningfully contribute to the team, whether, in terms of customer discovery activities. It could be as simple as coming up with questions to ask, thinking about people to interview and putting their names down, an email address in a list. You can even run the interviews yourself, or you can write down notes as the main entrepreneurial lead is doing the interview. But basically we're giving you an opportunity to get involved, and your engagement is as much as you're willing to give. So the more you give, the better, hopefully the better the team will produce their 25 customer discovery interviews. The goal is 25, but if you can help them do more, then that's great. And the other type is a cohort and ecosystem fellow, where you can actually work more closely with the I-Corps leadership team, where you help manage the cohort, in terms of like being in the room where the teaching team kind of decides on what guidelines or what feedback or support we give to the teams, managing the time of the cohort, online management. So these are kind of skills that you'll learn, and communication, and you'll build out your network as well. Both of these opportunities are really interesting. And we're trying to broaden participation in these innovation entrepreneurship activities for underrepresented groups. So the way you do that is you have to go to the website, which is at the bottom, and fill out this Qualtrics survey, which will, we're really asking about your name and department and major and your contact details. We want to hear about your leadership experience, what you've done in the past in terms of how you've led, whether you're president of a club or you were at a job and you kind of like led this team, or even in group projects, things like that. We're really interested in your experience or interest in innovation and entrepreneurship activities, whether you were part of a startup, whether you did product development or prototyping. Just, if you have an interest or experience in this area, we really want to know, so that way we know that you're passionate about it. That's what we really like to hear. And of course, your resume and LinkedIn profile. And after you submit that application, when we review it, if it seems like you could be a match for one of our teams, we'll do we'll set up a Zoom meeting with you to find out a little bit more about your interests and what you're looking for and your schedule, to see if you could, if you could meet with during those times. The one thing about the fellowship is you start a week before the cohort and you end a week after the cohort. The week before, you do a meet and greet with all the fellows, and kind of set your intentions of what you want to get out of the I-Corps experience. And then at the end, you kind of do this 5-minute presentation about what you learned, your summary and reflection about what you did, what team you were on, and what you learned through the process, and how it impacted you professionally or personally, and things like that. So we really want to see that fellows grow during their 6 to 8 weeks participation. And so the website is in the bottom. Lori, I don't know if I guess I'll
put it in the chat. I put it in the chat already.
Great. And so, so going back, this fellowship application is going on now as well. So if you're an individual without your own innovation, then you should apply for the fellowship. If you are a team with your own innovation, then you should apply for the I-Corps team application. Okay, that's typically how the two programs are related but separate. Yeah, and again, the fellowship, you might be interviewed a little bit later on, because we have to accept all the teams first. And then once we know who the teams are, then we can call you back to see if you match with one of our teams. Okay. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions about that as well. But again, the applications are open now. Lori, do you want to mention, I think we're coming to the end of the formal presentation. The one thing we want to mention is this upcoming event.
Yep, we have an upcoming event for women entrepreneurs or innovators to learn about communication strategies. The entrepreneurial environment is not always as friendly for women, and we want to help. So we're putting together this workshop. Really excited to be working with Christine Goldthwait and Joanna Catafesta, one's from Rutgers Center for Organizational Leadership, and the other is from Rutgers Office for Faculty Development. It's an hour-and-a-half workshop, and this is the first time we're doing something like this, so we're really excited. I just put the link in the chat for the Eventbrite registration. We're only taking 35 participants, and I know we were in the 20s as of yesterday. So if it's something you're interested in, I would say, sign up sooner versus later. And then now we can go to, anybody has questions about the I-Corps program, the fellowship, feel free to show your face, to come off mute if you're on mute, and ask us a question if you have it.
And thank you again for joining us today. So
we went quickly because there's a lot to cover, but we really want to be here for your questions.
Oh, Lori, the Eventbrite link didn't get into the chat.
Oh, you know what? I think I probably sent it just to Connie. Hold on a second.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Hold on, I've got to send it to everybody. That was my mistake.
It's like, I can see it.
Okay, here we go. Now everybody should be able to see it.
Okay, great. And again, this program is open to any Rutgers team from any department, any campus, right? We're very inclusive, as long as it's typically a STEM-based innovation. And so National Science Foundation is very loose about what STEM-based means. So, we're open to hearing what your innovation is, and we want to help guide you. So questions?
I actually had a question about that. So for the I-Corps program, do you consider like online courses or digital coaching or podcasting or any of those types of like ventures as in technological innovations? And would you like consider like making them a part of the I-Corps program?
So National Science Foundation is really focused on deep technology. A lot of these technologies, and remember, the creation of I-Corps was focused on innovations coming out of university research labs that we're developing, that are typically patented and things like that. They have
Over ed tech. So there is, there is a
Yeah.
track in the NSF for educational technologies. So if it's something that could have an impact and, and be applicable to, it could be scalable. So if it's not real focus, and it could be, something that could have commercial potential to other universities or other educational facilities, yes, it is a possibility.
Yeah. Usually they have kind of NSF research areas. And if it falls under one of those, then then it could be. Right.
Anybody else have questions? We're a friendly group, honestly.
I know.
I have a question.
Great.
So I'm a student. I'm a transfer student, so I'm not officially a sophomore more, but it's my second year at Rutgers. So I don't have any actual research experience, but I am interested in maybe like, I don't know how it would work. You mentioned some fellowships. I do have ideas, let's say, in my head. I've worked with I volunteered in various organizations in my field. What do you have to say about that?
You talking about for the fellowship?
Or just in general, like, would that be applicable for your program?
So you need to have some sort of, again, loosely based on NSF, some type of STEM innovation and at least another person you're working with. The program is really just too rigorous for a single person to do on their own. That's why we call it team-based, and we say 3 or more people is better. We do accept teams of 2, and we can often help you find others. So if you do have another person you're working with and you have some sort of innovation you're working on, then it might be applicable.
You mentioned the fellowship, so is that different than?
So the fellowship is single people that are interested in innovation and entrepreneurship. You're female, so you would be eligible, as we consider females part of underrepresented groups. If you have some leadership experience, you said you worked on projects, and an interest in innovation and entrepreneurship, what we will do is we'll look at your application, and if we think you might be a potential fit, we'll interview you. And then either we try to match you with one of the teams that we accept to help them go through the process, so you're like an extra member. Or we also have what's called a cohort fellow. And we typically have just one of those during each cohort, where you'll actually work with our teaching team and actually bringing this program and anything kind of behind the scenes. So it could be setting up meetings, it could be working with, taking notes for us or helping us send emails. It could be really anything, helping our teaching team run this program.
Do you have cohorts in the summer?
We do.
Because right now my class schedule is kind of full.
Yeah.
We do have a cohort in the summer. We somewhat stick to a similar schedule where we do a lot on Fridays, just because we've seen, but we've done like Tuesdays and Fridays in the summer. So, and we maybe make it a little bit shorter because we know people have vacations. Hopefully we'll all be able to vacation by the end of the summer. Fingers crossed, right? But that's kind of what we've done in the summer, is a little bit condensed, sometimes Tuesday, Fridays, but we do have it in the summer.
And typically the summer cohort begins soon after 4th of July. And the fall cohort typically begins mid to late October and runs until mid-November. So if that helps you with your planning, then great. But that's typically what we've done.
Would I apply now for, let's say, a summer cohort? Or would I wait on it?
I would probably say if you should if you know you're going to apply for the summer, I would say wait until after this cohort is over, only because it's, if you apply now, we're going to call you now.
Okay.
So
If you're not sure, we encourage you to apply now because we can talk to you about the schedule and things like that and go over some requirements. But if you definitely know you're waiting for the summer, it's just easier for us in terms of managing all the applications if you wait. But do it towards the beginning versus the end. It gives us more time.
yeah. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to mention about the fellows is once you become a fellow, you're always a fellow. So even after the cohort is over, you're still like a fellow, and there's other things that we're going to kind of reach out to you. We do want to kind of invest in your interest in innovation entrepreneurship. So if you're a sophomore, we're going to still call you a fellow and still reach out to you long after the cohort ends, because we're, like Lori said, it's like a family. So we are always encouraging for all of our participants to kind of succeed in innovation entrepreneurship.
And we have participants, students that are undergraduates first semester, all the way up to PhDs and postdocs, and anybody in between. And we've seen some really, really successful undergraduate teams. So it doesn't mean, you can't participate if you're undergraduate students. Typically, the PhDs and postdocs are working on a faculty innovation, not always, but typically. So they're, we're very inclusive. We're probably one of the most inclusive programs in the entire university, I have to say.
And also, if, again, this may or may not be for you, but you may know someone this is like perfect for. So just think about if anybody in your department or, one of your classmates or something might have an interest in this as well, and definitely share the opportunity.
Or you may not have an innovation now, but 6 months from now, you may think of something and you think it really could be a very impactful, and you can find another person to work on it with you, then you could apply then. That's why we wanted to mention this is, we're recruiting for this cohort, but we're also always, trying to get people aware of the program in case something comes up in the future.
What do you mean by innovation and entrepreneurship?
So the idea is that you come up with some sort of technology or some sort of idea that will create value, whether it makes something faster or makes something cheaper or makes something easier and has some sort of societal benefit. And that idea is just great in your head, but we want to help you kind of bring it out into the market, bring it out into the world, and apply resources, feedback, advice, training, so that way you can really help you to bring that technology out into the real world. A lot of times there are a lot of solo entrepreneurs, they're just all doing it on their own. This program really helps people to figure out what they need to do to move forward, whether it's connecting to a funding opportunity or connecting with another person to meet and things like that. So you're not alone if you go through I-Corps.
So it's a small business development and growth opportunity. So that broadly considers entrepreneurship.
Right.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. I had a question actually. So I'm currently a PhD student, and I worked as a part of a group and we got a patent, but I'm not on the patent. And it happens that our professor is not really interested in starting a startup or considering the business aspects of the product that we have. And the senior PhD student graduated. So currently I'm alone. So do you think I would be a good fit for the program, though I'm not on the patent?
I think Dan should answer that one.
Well, so I would say it doesn't matter if you're named on the patent. The patent exists, and if you're excited about that idea, then it might be worthy of commercializing. It would probably be good to have your professor, even though your professor isn't interested in starting a company, maybe the professor would join as the technical lead and help you figure out how to commercialize it. The university would be very happy to license the technology to a startup that you would form, even if you're not named on the patent. You might still lead the company, right? So it could all be a win-win.
Thank you. And is the end goal of this program to have a company started, or is that like the ideal goal and then it's more about the journey, and then if something happens, that's like the icing on the cake?
Exactly.
Different teams are at different stages of development. You do not have to create a company to get started. You might not create a company ever. You might decide that it's not worth it, or you might adjust, you might pivot and decide that a different aspect of the invention might be more valuable. So it's probably more useful for early stage ideas where you're still trying to test what the marketplace is like, but you do have a good idea somehow. And but overall, we are hoping that we create new businesses, or you create new businesses. That would be good.
Right. The goal, the NSFA wants these innovations to benefit society, but we all know how important it is for small businesses to grow and create employment opportunities, right? Specifically in the environment we're in now. So that is, I love the way you put it, the icing on the cake is a successful startup that's hiring people. But anywhere in between, if the team grows through I-Corps, we personally consider it a success because we're moving you along that commercialization pathway, which, as Dunbar mentioned, everybody's in different stages, and Mark mentioned it as well. The other successful outcome is that you fail fast. So we have had teams realize that they're not a great team. Maybe the innovation's great, but the team's not. And we've had people who have switched teams. They've kept their innovation, but had worked with different team members. You may also find out that usually we don't see that the innovation is just terrible. It's usually they need to modify it slightly and things need to change a little bit, or they need to go after a different customer segment. But, they call it, failing fast because you learn it now through I-Corps without spending, millions of dollars and putting out a product that maybe someone doesn't want. So that's a successful outcome.
The other potential successful outcome coming out of this is you may go through the process and say, it doesn't make sense for it to be a startup, but we've identified 3 companies that we can license this to, right? Not every innovation makes sense as a standalone business. Sometimes it's better integrated into an existing platform, and that's also we've seen that coming out of this process too. With this process, especially the site process, will really help you focus on is, who are the customers and why do they care, right? Who cares and why? For those that want to go on to really do a startup, we're going to recommend that you go to nationals. There are some other accelerator type programs for founding the company. What we're really focused on at the site program is figuring out, is there a market? Who is it, and what should it look like?
I see. Okay.
And then we'll help you. And by the way, Mark talked about the fellows being part of the family. Our I-Corps teams are also part of our family. So we'll help you try to think through some of those questions about, does a startup make sense? Does it make sense to do a license? Right? You'll have a group of people that you can actually have that conversation with.
I see. Okay. And I guess my final question would be that as it looks right now, I would be the only one participating. Do you think that would limit me because I'm not from a minority, or I don't satisfy those criteria and I'm a male? Or do you think I should wait and try to get a friend in and then apply for the summer or the next cohort?
It's a good question. So one of the things I recommend, because you have an innovation that you're focusing on, right? Even though you're not the inventor of that patent, if you're trying to bring that technology forward, is that what I understood?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So then you would apply as a team, even though you're just one. We encourage you to find other people, possibly in your lab or other colleagues that you know of that are familiar with the technology who could kind of help. You might even want to just talk with the technical lead to see if they could be part of the team, but not fully participate in the way that we might want you to. Because what we've seen is a lot of times the faculty, because they're academics, they're entrenched in the academic world, so they're not interested in commercialization or the business side. Not all, but some. And so that's kind of perfectly fine. That's the purpose of the entrepreneurial lead, because the entrepreneurial lead is the one who wants to expand on the business opportunity. But the technical lead has the technical know-how of the technology to see what is possible and how to pivot it, or how it could be kind of changed or whatever, modified. So they might be able to kind of sign up, but not participate fully. I wouldn't encourage that. I would want to, right now they say no, but once they learn more about it, they'll learn a lot. We've seen that with a lot of faculty. They're kind of dismissive. And then once they go through it, they're like, wow, I really had no idea what I didn't know. That's what the quotes were about. We had faculty who really learned a lot. And so a lot of times it's the entrepreneurial lead who has to push the faculty to join. So
the reason the NSF created the program with the student as the entrepreneurial lead is they recognize that faculty typically do not want to leave their university jobs. And that's why they structured it that way. So it's great to have the faculty participate, but they have nowhere the amount of time do they need to spend like the entrepreneurial lead, like you would if you were joining. So if they could be involved, as Mark said, even on a limited basis, it's helpful. The other thing I want to mention is you can have teammates that aren't in Rutgers. So there's not a requirement that your teammates are all part of the university. You could have teammates from another university from elsewhere. So that is an option for you.
Okay.
And Siddharth, what I would also encourage you, I'm actually the licensing manager for a lot of ECE technologies. So I don't know who the PI is that you're working with, but I'd be happy to have a phone call with them to talk about the program and what the value is and kind of what they can get out of it.
Okay. I maybe you know him. He's Dr. Rich Howard.
Oh yes, I know Richard Howard. Sure.
Right. So maybe you even worked on the same patent I'm talking about.
Which one is it?
The headphones.
Oh yeah. Oh, actually, I think actually you'd be a great. So I really want to encourage you to do this program.
Okay.
Okay.
I circled that on the list of recent disclosures and said this would be a great thing for I-Corps, actually.
It would be. So what I'd be happy to have a conversation with Richard about it. I know him and I can completely understand where you're coming from. I'd be happy to have a conversation with him about it. But I think it's a great technology for this kind of program. And actually, what you can even do, we can talk to Jaran, and he might even be able to be the technical lead.
Okay.
Because he's the inventor. He might be more willing. I don't know about his time availability, but what I would suggest is, why don't you reach out to me separately, and let's talk about how to do it.
I'm glad you brought that up because we've often had the case where graduate students, PhDs or postdocs, had to push their academic leads to join this program, and there was a lot of misconceptions about it. And I think the academic leads thought that they had to do like tons and tons of work, where really they're kind of in the background, just kind of behind the scenes, where the student is really taking the lead. So if that fits anybody else that's on today, feel free to reach out to us separately or to even bring it up now. We can have someone talk to the academic lead and give them some really up-to-date information. Even it could be their licensing person in tech transfer.
All right. Yeah, that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Okay. So other questions, Rimsha or Fernando, Shashikalasad. Sorry, I apologize for that, but you're here for a reason. So we want to help answer those questions. Even if you want to express your interest, say I don't want to do it now or whatever, but feel free to talk to us so we know how we can help. Oh, okay, great. Okay. Oh yeah, Fernando, right. Great. So I hope we answered your questions about the fellowship and you understand a little bit better. We will be reaching out to the fellows probably not this week, but maybe next week after we've kind of solidified all the teams. So just heads up.
Mark, there's a question in the chat about alumni.
Can alumni be part of I-Corps?
Yes.
Yes. We're open to, students, faculty, staff, and alumni.
Oh, Siddharth, looks like you just picked up a teammate.
Oh, already?
Well, Fernando expressed interest in working on your project.
Ah.
Actually, that's one of the things too. We try to match fellows. So I've never had a fellow match before they applied.
That's great. I love it. Makes our work easier.
Yeah. So again, if you're on your own, then you're stuck and you're on your own. With I-Corps, the whole framework, we help connect, and this, yeah, Fernando, we have to review your application to see if it's a match, but it sounds like.
And we also open the program up to like community colleges and others that, are may have underrepresented students. So there may be a team in our cohort that is a totally non-Rutgers team, and that's great too. They bring different things to the table as well. So, feel free to reach out to us if you have questions.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to mention also, we didn't say it outright, but it feels it that way. It's like our program is really a lot of fun. It's a lot of work and it's kind of rigorous, but it's also just so much fun. You know, you see like people kind of finding out new things that they never learned before, that they never knew, a lot of surprises from team to team. You see all these different innovations happening all across the university. Like where else do you get a chance to not just see them and just read an article about it, but work with them, talk with them, engage with them. It's really exciting and a unique opportunity that it's hard to find anywhere else in the university. So we really love it. And when you join the program, a lot of our teams that we speak with afterwards, they speak fondly about their experience with us. So, you know, it's
We're all
great.
doing it because we love it. None of us is here because we have to be. We're all doing it because we want to do it. And I think that really makes a huge difference. And that's why we want to make sure we answer questions and cover any misconceptions, because the teams that join really join because they want to learn more about their customers and see if they really are solving a problem and if there is that match. And those that have that curiosity and that passion learn so much from this program. It's just they grow. It's amazing.
Right. So it is 12 o'clock. If there are no other questions, I will stop the recording. Okay, I'll stop it.